Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to another action figure review, and today we'll be taking a look at the Bandai Movie Monster Series Anguirus 2004. Now this version of Anguirus comes from the 2004 film Godzilla Final Wars, which is a movie that I used to really like when I was a kid. Even middle school, I used to say that it was like my favorite Godzilla movie of all time. After watching it recently, and by recently I mean about a year ago, it's not really my favorite, truth be told. It's not a bad movie by any means, but it's not perfect either, and it definitely has some very noticeable flaws, but yeah. Anyway, as far as Anguirus goes, he is still my favorite Godzilla monster of all time. Of course, my number one favorite being Godzilla, but Anguirus is definitely a close second, and the only thing I can say is to just bring him back already. Just bring him back in another Godzilla movie. Or there'd be a sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong where he just so happens to show up, or just bring him back in a new Godzilla movie. That'd be great. I know he was found dead in King of the Monsters, but just make up the excuse. Just make up the excuse that, oh, that wasn't the real Anguirus. That was just, its sibling or offspring or whatever. Or even, he's magically back, I guess. Just something. Just bring him back, because he's a monster that needs more love in the Godzilla franchise, but I digress. Anyway, before we take a look at Anguirus himself, just putting him to the side here, we'll take a quick look at his card. And the card here is very nice. We have a very nice screenshot of Anguirus from Godzilla Final Wars, which I think looks very nice. And of course we have Godzilla right here in the corner. And just the Godzilla 2019 emblem right here. No 65th anniversary, so it's kind of weird that only Mogira has the 65th anniversary, but I digress. We have Anguirus 2004 right here, and some more Japanese writing below. On the back, we have Anguirus' back, Godzilla Final Wars, Bandai Movie Monster Series, Bandai there, and some more Japanese writing and whatnot. On the inside, we have some more Japanese writing, a silhouette of Anguirus right here, and once again, the Godzilla emblem for some reason. Not the Anguirus emblem that it should have been, just Godzilla, which, yeah, no, I think that is a little weird, but I digress. Anyway, that's pretty much it for Anguirus' card. Now for Anguirus himself, and to start off with, we'll take a look at the painting, as we usually do, and the painting on this figure is definitely the weakest point. It's not awful, but it is definitely a step down from the Bandai Creations Anguirus that came out a while back. So, yeah. I will say this though, I do like the darker shade of blue for this Anguirus, rather than the older one. But, yeah, the painting here is just a lot better, so we'll put them to the side for now, and we'll do more of a comparison later on, but yeah. Anyway, of course, most of the figure is a darker shade of blue, which does look nice. And I kind of like how the spikes on his back are painted. Not really the cleanest in terms of paint, but I like the overall color. It looks very flat, but at the same time it looks like one of those like maple candies that your grandmother would have or something. I know mine had some of these, but yeah, I don't know if that's just me or whatever, but yeah, I'm just sticking with my stomach now. Of course, the spikes on the back of his head are painted, I'd say the same color as the spikes on his back, maybe just like a little different, as well as his horn right here. His eyes are painted white with brown pupils, and for some reason on mine, there is a lot of paint blemishes near the eye. I don't know if you can see that there, but there's one very noticeable one in front of his eye, which I don't really know why it's there, but thankfully there's none on this side, so there's always that. His teeth are painted the same color as his horn here, and unfortunately the inside of the mouth is not painted, which is a little unfortunate, but that's a thing that I'm just gonna have to live with, I guess. So yeah, the spikes on his arm right here, or forelimb, I guess, that's not painted either, which is a shame. The fingernails are painted, or toenails, whatever you want to call them. They're painted like a yellowish greenish color, which looks okay, nothing fancy, it's just alright. As well as the toenails on the back here. And the spikes on the back of his tail are not painted, which is a shame. And that's pretty much it for the painting on this figure. Very lackluster and definitely the weakest part of the figure. And then we have the Bandai Creations one. The one that came out I want to say almost 15 years ago, I could be wrong, but, you know, the spikes on the side of his legs here are painted. He has a painted tongue, as you can see, and the spikes on the end of his tail here are painted. So, in terms of paint apps, this figure has more. I wish that, you know, the painting here kind of like carried on to this, but of course, this is a Bandai Movie Monster Series figure, a newer one at least, so of course the painting is not going to be the best. So, unfortunately, the painting on this figure, it's not the worst thing I've seen on a Bandai Movie Monster Series figure. It's definitely not as bad as the 2018 Destroya that came out last year, or actually, when I'm uploading this, it'll be almost 2 years ago, but, actually 3 years ago, now that I think about it. I believe Destroya came out in 2017. Anyway, going back to the figure itself, the painting, not the worst I've seen on a Bandai Movie Monster Series figure, but it's definitely not the best, so unfortunately the painting here, I'd say gets 3/4 of a pass. There are still some, you know, bits of painting here that actually does look nice, but unfortunately it is a step down from the 2005 Bandai Creations Anguirus, so yeah. Anyway, that is it for the paint. Now we'll take a look at the articulation, and the articulation on this figure is actually not bad. It's pretty similar to the Bandai Creations Anguirus, so actually it's exactly the same, so let's just take a closer look. So basically, the head can twist 360, as well as the forelimbs, though you do kind of have to force it, so I wouldn't recommend you do this all the time, but just know that you can twist the forelimbs 360, as well as the hind limbs. Except they're much more easier to rotate, so you don't really have to worry about grinding up against anything. And that is it for the articulation on this figure. It's not bad. It's a Bandai Movie Monster Series figure, so of course there's not going to be too much in terms of articulation, but for what it is, it's still nice, and it is, you know, one-to-one with the original Bandai Creations Anguirus. So, yeah. The articulation for a Bandai Movie Monster Series figure is good, so it gets a pass. Now we'll take a look at the sculpt, and the sculpting on this figure is actually really good, and truth be told, I think I prefer the sculpting on this figure rather than the Bandai Creations Anguirus. This figure is a little more wider compared to the newer one, where it's definitely a little slimmer, and I feel like the newer one has more of like an intimidating face than the original one. That's just me, so in terms of sculpt, I think I like the new one a little more, but the old one still looks great. So, yeah. And the sculpting here, again, looks spot on to how he looked in Godzilla Final Wars. Everything here looks great. And, yeah, this guy looks great in terms of the sculpting. So the sculpting on this figure gets a pass. Now take a look at the detailing. And the detailing on this figure, again, is very good. So, going to the head here, all the creasing and folds and, you know, the wrinkles in his face, and even the scaling on the top of his head looks very nice, very well defined, and I really like how that looks. And the inside of his mouth is detailed somewhat nicely as well, though again, it's a shame that nothing in there is painted. The creasing in the neck here, again, detailed very nicely, very well defined. And even in the forelimbs here, the detailing here for the paneling, like, the Anguirus sword-like detailing here looks very nice, and all the creases and wrinkles, again, very nicely defined. The spikes don't look the best, but they look okay. And going to the hind limbs, we can see more very nice detailing in terms of the, again, the Anguirus sword-like armor, I guess, going on here, which does look nice, and the creasing and musculature, everything here looks great. And the scales on the back of the tail, again, look great. And that continues. And the end of the tail here is detailed nicely as well. And going to the underside, we have this weird sort of scaling going on, which does look nice, but yeah. And more creasing and whatnot underneath the tail, and some legal information. And yeah. And that's pretty much it for the detailing on this figure. The detailing on this figure is very good for what it is. So, the detail on this figure, I'd say gets a pass. So, at the end of the day, should you get this? Honestly, this is not a bad Anguirus figure whatsoever. You know, it's not perfect, mainly because of the paint. If the paint was a little better, then I'd easily recommend this figure, but the paint is still a little lackluster, so unfortunately, it's not the best Anguirus figure in the world, but I gotta be honest, it's not horrible either. The sculpting's there, the articulation's there, and the detailing is even there as well. I just wish for, the Bandai movie Monster Series figures, at least like the newer ones by Bandai, I just kind of wish that they put a lot more love and care into the paint. But, yeah, this is still a very nice figure. In terms of prices, it should cost you about, like, between 20 to 25 bucks, which is honestly not bad at all. You could do a lot worse with that money, so again, I'd say that this figure is definitely worth it. So yeah, if you can get this figure, definitely go for it. And if you want to know how big he is, here he is next to Dr. Billy Grant. Before I end this video, I briefly talked about this at the beginning, but all I want to say is I really want to see Anguirus back. Anguirus, he is my second favorite Godzilla monster in the franchise. He's great. Anguirus is honestly great and is a monster that I feel like deserves a lot more love. So I would love to see this Ankylosaur, hedgehog, dog, thing, whatever you want to call him. It'd be great to see him in another movie again. Honestly, I think it would be incredible. So, yeah. Of course, I think the last time we saw him was in the 2015 game. But I don't necessarily have that, but in terms of movies, it would be great to see Anguirus again. Well, alive at least, so yeah. Anyway, that is it for today. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video. Peace, Zack out.